So yeah, I wanted to talk about vegan bacon. So my blog is about like bacon.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, what would be interesting for people to read about? And then I figured like so many people are like moving towards a more vegetarian or vegan lifestyle now that doing a post about like vegan baking and is it worth it? What hints and tips for trying to do vegan stuff? But does someone just want to listen to me ramble for 20 minutes, or is it easier if I have a conversation? And I was like, wait, I know someone who does dairy-free baking.
My nemesis.
My main competition.
My main comp.
So I was like, yeah, I can bring you in if you're up to chat.
100%.
Cool.
Love talking about food.
Yeah.
Can I start with a rant?
Yeah. That's all we've got time for.
The lack of vegan options in most coffee shops.
Okay.
And what those options mostly are have seeds and nuts and raisins in them. And
Yeah.
who wants to eat that
Who
when your
wants that?
friend is eating a delicious brownie or a chocolate chip cookie or a scone or whatever?
Yeah.
Or a cinnamon bun.
Yeah.
FYI, Chris baked some delicious vegan cinnamon buns today.
But yeah, I went, so it was Laura's birthday, not last weekend, the weekend before, and her sister-in-law is dairy-free. So I baked Laura like this red velvet cake, like cream cheese icing, decorated it, and then, so Laura knew it was coming, it wasn't a surprise. Laura was like, well, what's Chantel gonna have, because she's dairy-free? And I was like, oh, I'm sure I can just go and like, go to any store these days and you can find a vegan dessert. I could not find one.
Unless you go somewhere specifically
Yeah.
that does, I think, focusing
Yeah.
on vegan baked goods, which there are, thankfully, lots of several places in Victoria
Yeah.
that do that. But yeah, it's not.
But yeah, I just saw I could walk into Walmart and there would be a whole section and be like, oh, any dairy-free cake, there you go. But it was harder to find than I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, I don't know, when I bake, I like to include everyone, but it was like one person out of 12.
Right.
And it's
I get
like,
it.
I'm putting a lot of effort in for one person.
My sister-in-law.
Who doesn't
No
really even
offense.
like me that much.
But on
yeah.
the flip side, I think it's easy enough to like, when you're baking, to like substitute just a few
Exactly.
ingredients.
Exactly.
And then I feel like people don't know the difference.
Mhm.
So you've used like applesauce or like a flax seed egg instead of real egg, or like vegan butter instead of regular butter. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. I don't have a discerning palate, but I don't really notice a big difference.
Have you used applesauce? Because I've heard about it, but I'm
No.
worried if it makes it very apple-y.
No, I haven't. Sometimes people use banana too, and I feel like I can taste that in some baking. Like Yoni's Donuts.
I haven't had one.
Shout out to Yoni's Donuts.
Free donuts, please.
They have 2 vegan options, and I'm assuming they put banana in it because it has like a faint banana taste.
Because I'm worried about with substitutes that you taste it. So
Yeah.
like for putting in vegan milk, which is not milk from vegan cows, it's nut milk.
Cows are vegan.
Cows are vegan. But yeah, so like last night I was making the vegan cinnamon rolls, and then the one ingredient that I didn't just have in my pantry was dairy-free milk. So I went, and I was worried that like coconut milk, almond milk, does that leave a very strong coconut flavor?
I think it
to baked
depends what kind of
goods?
coconut milk you're using. So if you're using it out of a can, even then I think there's a big difference between brands. And then if you get the Tetra Pak, like I feel like that doesn't taste like coconut at all. Oat milk, I find. Oat milk, if you use it in baking, maybe this is just my head, but like it's oats, and then you're using oats in the baking, and the oat milk and the oats get really oaty, and then it's too much
A little bit
oats.
too much.
Yeah, so I tend not to cook with, and it makes it, I feel like it makes it taste weird. So I go with almond milk usually, or soy.
The one I ended up using, I don't know if you've used Next
No.
Milk. So it's from Silk. It's called Next Milk, which I feel like is just a marketing thing. But it's like a mix of oat, soy, and coconut milk.
Interesting.
And I've had it once before just as like for cereal when I was going through trying to be dairy free.
Yeah.
And then I used it for baking, and I think because it's a blend of the three, not one of them is like particularly strong. But yeah, shout out to Silk for all they do, which dairy-free milk is the one thing you can find everywhere now, but like, so yeah, used Next Milk in the cinnamon rolls, and I'll throw that recipe up on the blog for anyone that wants to check it out, but I think it turned out well. It wasn't
I wouldn't have known that it was not
I just used
dairy.
coconut oil instead of like eggs or anything. And then, Next Milk, and no butter, no eggs, no milk. Turned out well.
Totally did.
So my only other foray into the vegan baking was the tiramisu, which I used. For that, I used aquafaba. I don't know if you've used...
No, it's scary. Like, I feel like it's just too scary to use.
Yeah, aquafaba.
Yeah, like chickpea water.
Mm-hmm.
Not even chickpea water. It's the water that the chickpeas have been sitting in.
Yeah.
Which, what is that? Is it water
I don't know.
infused with chickpeas?
Like,
or is it
just
chickpea
juice?
sweat?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I don't know. And I was very skeptical about it.
Because you use them to make the little cookies.
Like the sponge fingers.
Which is very impressive.
And when you're getting it out of the can and when you're whipping it, you can really smell the chickpea. And I was like, oh no, I'm just making chickpea tiramisu, which no one wants. And then it kind of, like all the recipes and all the blog posts I read was like, don't worry, the flavor bakes out. I was like, I don't know, it smells pretty strong. But yeah, I thought, once you put the coffee on the sponge and everything, you can't taste it anyway, but I tasted the sponge on its own, and yeah, the chickpea flavor was gone. I was like, wow. But yeah, aquafaba is, as you say, chickpea, the water that chickpeas sit in when they're in the can. I don't know if it is just water or if it's like...
I mean, it has its own name, so it must be
it's
something.
Be like brine of some kind. I don't know. But yeah, and you whip that up and use it instead of eggs. I don't know if you've...
I know people have made meringue with it. Again, I haven't tried it.
Because it does foam up and like the way egg whites
So you can make like
would.
an angel food cake with it, or like meringues.
Yeah.
A pavlova, perhaps.
Eden mess, if you're fancy.
I don't know what that is.
So it's like, it's a pavlova, but it's, the meringue is like broken up. And the story goes that someone at Eton, which is the famous posh college in England, someone made a pavlova, dropped it, all the berries and the egg white and the meringue and everything broke. They just scooped it back onto a plate and just served it. I was like, this is my dish.
It's like Kevin in The Office when he drops the big vat of chili.
Tries to scoop it back in. But yeah, and then that created a brand new dessert somehow. But it's just a fancy pavlova.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
But yeah, I think aquafaba is I had never even heard of it, so I think it's an underused product. I don't know if many vegan bakeries make use of it. I'm sure they do, but...
I mean, the ones in town that I know of, I think they stick to like pretty standard things like cinnamon buns, donuts, and then like your cookie, scone, cake, squares.
It's crazy that, as we said, like trying to find a packaged, pre-made, baked good that is vegan or dairy-free can be more difficult, but it's so easy to make it at home. Like
Sure.
just switching out certain ingredients, switching out the milk for dairy-free milk, or if you do have a can of chickpeas lying around, like just using the chickpea sauce. I don't know. But like, it's simple substitutions, and you're not gonna notice it in the finished good.
Like, have you had a raw cheesecake before with like nuts, cashews?
Oh yes, I have.
Like,
I made one.
cashew is like a magical nut.
Yeah.
You soak it and you blend it, and then all of a sudden it turns into this like really smooth.
I made one,
Yep.
but I think my problem was I don't think I soaked the cashews long enough, and they were still a bit. It was still very like grainy almost. But yeah, cashews are crazy.
Again, super easy. You don't have to bake it even.
Yeah. And they make a very healthy snack, so shout out to cashews.
Shout out to cashews.
If anyone wants to sponsor us. Sponsored by cashews.
And Next Milk. Or what's it called?
Next Milk. And chickpea juice. How long have you been dairy-free, if you don't mind me?
You know what? I don't know. Probably like 15 years.
And how many of those? How long have you been kind of like baking stuff and playing around with?
I'd say from the get-go. Yeah. I had a friend who was, I think around the same time, was going through school to become a holistic nutritionist. So I think she had some really good recipes that she would share with me. Back then, back in the old days, we would get like recipe books. Not so much use the internet.
What's a book? Sorry, what is this word?
So yeah, just like...
You mean an iPad, right?
iBook? Yeah. No, so I think from the get-go, just not that I'm like a big sweets person, but just having those options, like playing around with different options. It's important, especially if you're changing your diet.
Yeah.
It's not like super drastic, but it kind of is when you realize like dairy's in a lot of things and things that you wouldn't expect dairy to be in.
Also, there's so much information coming out now that like humans aren't super designed to process this dairy.
Yeah.
And so many more people have an intolerance to dairy than they realize. Maybe they're just like, oh, it just gives me a little bit of a funny tummy, or I get a funny tummy and I don't know why. If you look at it, maybe like it is the dairy, because we're not necessarily designed to process this stuff. And I think a lot more people are realizing that now. So having these options is great for a lot of people. And also, if you just want to live a more vegan, vegetarian lifestyle.
Exactly. I feel like they say it's healthier. It's not as hard as you think it is.
No. And it doesn't... The end product isn't as drastically different as you think it would be.
Yeah, and I feel like people say that like butter's healthier than oil. I don't know. I don't have the scientific data, but I think both are probably bad in their own way. And I only say that because my mother-in-law seems to think that.
I do remember on that topic.
10 years of being married, still dealing with that.
I remember when I was a kid, like when I was young, like 4, 5, 6, we would have real butter, and then it kind of came out that butter wasn't so good for you, and everyone moved to margarine, and then we used that for like 10 years, and like you would never find butter in my house. And I was like 16, 17 at my first job, one lunchtime, just opened the paper, and there was like an article, and it was like, butter's not as bad for you as we thought. Maybe margarine isn't great. And I like texted my mom immediately. I was like, we're getting butter. I ran to the store, bought some butter. I was like, yes. I don't remember what this tastes like.
But could you tell the difference though between the two? Yeah, I can't really either.
No. Unless it's like
pure hand-formed
really,
butter that was, you know.
And like really salty, really thickly spread.
Yeah.
Like maybe, but even then, not overly. I think it was just the novelty that, you know, I hadn't had real butter for like 10, 15 years because it was like banished in our house. And then one day it was like, actually, it's not as bad as you think. So who knows? I don't have the data. I probably should have come prepared with data, but yeah. I just think, yeah, anyone who's interested in moving to a vegan or vegetarian lifestyle, or even dipping their toe.
Or even like just, what's the word? Like being not accessible, but you know, like for your, like you baked for your sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
So like being able to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Why am I going blank? Accommodate.
Yeah. I was like, accessible. It sounds right, but it's not
just
accommodating.
Yeah, being able to accommodate people with different like dietary needs, at the very least. Yeah, it's not as scary or hard.
Like, on my blog, I wrote like I got into baking because I feel like it's my love language. It's like if someone's having a bad day, I want to bake them something, or even if, you know, the vibe in the office is a little bit off, I'm like, I'm gonna bring in something, and it always kills me a little bit when I bring something in, and then I realize as I'm making it or as I'm on my way to work, I'm like, and it can't have these. Just a little piece of me dies each time. So I'm like, okay, gotta get some practice with this. So yeah, the cinnamon rolls, I think they turned out well. I'll throw that recipe up on the blog, check it out. Yeah. I feel like that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Internet.